Eagles general manager Howie Roseman might not be finished. We're talking about that on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, and as we always do, we're bringing the heat here on the show. My name is Chase Sr. Thanks for hanging out here with us. Let's begin with this, though, a programming reminder. Not going to be able to do as much content this week because I am in a wedding this weekend, and so let's have some fun with this, all right? We're at 120,846 subscribers. That means that we're closing in on 121K. Each sub that we get is one drink for the wedding party during wedding weekend. I'm going to be keeping track of that. We're going to be having a blast, so let's have some fun, and we appreciate your support. The Bryce Huff trade is finalized pending a physical. He obviously has to pass that with San Francisco, but for a few days in the aftermath of that trade, we weren't sure what the trade compensation was going to be. Niners getting Bryce Huff. The Eagles will get back a fifth-round pick, which could become a fourth based on playing time and performance for Huff with the Niners in 2025. Philadelphia also saving $2.4 million in 2025 cap space and nearly $8 million in cash. And, of course, they're opening up a roster spot. So right now, with the trade of Bryce Huff and then the releases of Darius Slay and James Bradbury, a couple of roster spots open for Philadelphia. And with those post-June 1 cuts becoming official, on top of the nearly $2.5 million in cap space that the Eagles freed up by sending Huff to the Niners, they opened up an additional $6.4 million in cap room. And so right now, Eagles smack dab in the middle among the 32 teams in the National Football League in available cap space with $25.5 million. As you can see those figures, thanks to our friends at Over the Cap. And with this Eagles outside linebacker pass rusher position and the rotation at that spot and the outlook at that position, you think about the players who are going to get the bulk of the snaps there for defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. Nolan Smith had a fantastic year too. He went from 1 sack as a rookie to 6.5 sacks in his sophomore campaign, and he led the NFL with 4 more sacks in the playoffs. And so you're hoping that he can take another leap from year 2 to year 3. Nolan Smith, though, does have some injury worries. He had the shoulder issue, had to get surgery after his rookie year, and then he tore his triceps in the Super Bowl. Back on the practice field, that's great, wearing a bulky brace, but those are 2 surgeries in 2 years for the second-year player. Jalen Hunt really came on as a rookie. Vic Fangio talked about him on Tuesday, how Bryce Huff hurt his hand, and when he tried to play with the cast on his hand, that basically took an arm away from him, and so that impacted his play, and Huff didn't play because of that, but also because Jalen Hunt, Nolan Smith got more snaps, and they performed very well. The Eagles are hoping that Jalen Hunt can make a leap from year 1 to year 2. Azeez Ojulari, Eagles got him for cheap in free agency. Could he be another giant that really turns it on with the Eagles? He certainly has the ability to get after the quarterback. He has 22 sacks in 46 games and 30 starts, but he's been injured a lot. And for Josh Uche, another player in this edge rusher rotation, 11.5 sacks in 2022. That's a great year then under Bill Belichick. But he only has 7 since. His pass rush win rate has been very good, but there has been a steep decline in his sack production since that double-digit sack season, although he is still only 26 years old. Azeez Ojulari is 24 years old. So, what's one theme with what I said when breaking down that position? There's a lot of hope. The Eagles are hopeful. There are a lot of what-ifs at that position. Not a lot of sure things at a very important position, and one that Howie Roseman really values. And so, if Howie thinks that he needs to improve the pass rush at outside linebacker and edge rusher, he'll bolster that position. Right now, for a game were to be played right now, Nolan Smith, Jalen Hunt would be the starters at left outside linebacker and right outside linebacker. And then Josh Uche, Azeez Ojulari would be a part of that rotation. And I think with how experienced Antoine Powell-Ryland was at the college level and how productive he was at the college level at Florida and at Virginia Tech, he too could get some snaps. But if a player were to go down there, or if there wasn't an ascent for a player at that position, the pass rush does become a little bit worrisome. You lose Josh Sweat, and you lose Milton Williams along that defensive line. And along the interior, you're hoping that some other players, like a Jordan Davis, going to be able to take a big leap. That Jalen Carter can continue to grow into being one of the top defensive players in the NFL. But there are some risks as far as the Eagles trying to get after the QB in 2025. Zack Berman knows the Eagles well, covers the Birds for PHLY, used to be with The Athletic and Philadelphia Inquirer, and he said this, which I thought was interesting. My biggest concern about the Eagles before this transaction was at edge rusher. I wasn't expecting Huff to be a contributing member of the team, so this does not make it worse, but it brings to the spotlight the Eagles' edge rusher group. Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunter-Key. They're the top two edge rushers. They're homegrown players, and they can both take another step in development. Azeez Ojulari was the Eagles' biggest signing this offseason. They'll try to see if Josh Uche can reclaim his double-digit sack form, but I don't think the Eagles are finished at this spot. There are potential ring-chasing veterans available, such as Zadarius Smith and Von Miller. But how about this from Berman? Could the Eagles try to pull off a high-profile trade for Travon Walker of the Jags? I don't think that the Eagles are finished. Now, it's notable when something like that comes from a guy like Zack Berman, who has been covering this team for many years, has written a couple of books on the Philadelphia Eagles, which include and feature interviews with the likes of Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, and members who are very close to the organization and are a part of the inner operations of the Eagles organization. Underdogs after the Eagles won Super Bowl 52, and then coming out, I believe in September, is leap year from the 2024 campaign. The Philadelphia Eagles ascent to Super Bowl champions. And so Berman has inside sources with the Eagles. He also has a good pulse for what the Eagles are prone to do. And here on this show, given that Howie Roseman really values the edge rusher spot and the Eagles always invest there, we've talked about a couple of blockbuster defensive ends here on the program. Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Micah Parsons. And we've talked about those players throughout the course of the offseason. Travon Walker, on the other hand, though, a little bit different than those three players on your screen. Travon Walker is younger than Garrett, Hendrickson, and Parsons. Probably not quite as good as three of the top pass rushers in the game, but that could end up benefiting Philadelphia because Travon Walker, more affordable via a trade, more affordable via a new contract. He's not going to come close to what Myles Garrett got. I don't think he's going to get the type of money that Trey Hendrickson will get from the Bengals or another team. Hendrickson, 17.5 sacks in each of the last 2 years. And Micah Parsons could become the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the National Football League. Travon Walker is also interesting for Vic Fangio because he's good against the run, and he's good as a pass rusher, and he's continuing to develop. Walker is still only 24 years old. He'll be 25 in December. And he's been steadily improving, and he's a Georgia Bulldog. And we know that Howie Roseman loves his Georgia Bulldogs. And if Howie can land Travon Walker, he would add to the Philly Bulldogs list from that legendary national championship winning 2021 Georgia defense. Travon Walker was an edge rusher on that team. Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter were defensive tackles on that squad under Kirby Smart. Nolan Smith was another edge rusher. And that was the starting front four right there. You kidding me? And then on that second and third level, you had Nakobe Dean, the best off-ball linebacker in college football. Keely Ringo was a corner. And then Lewis Cine is on this team. He was a first-round pick by the Vikings a couple of years ago. He anchored the safety position for Georgia. and Howie just has a lot of familiarity and a really good pulse with that program. So I want to pop up today's poll question here. What is your level of interest in a player like Travon Walker? And in Travon Walker specifically here, scale it for me from 1 to 100. 1, not interested at all. 100, you want Howie to go get his guy. Comment down below right now. We continue to have fantastic deals to tell you about here on Eagles Now, thanks to our friends at Fanatics. Great jersey deals, a great Super Bowl hat deal. This deal, it's also wildly impressive. These Super Bowl shirts, these are the shirts that the Eagles put on over their pads right after they won Super Bowl 59 against Kansas City. They're 50% off. They were $40, now on sale for $20. All you have to do, use that link down below, chatsports.com/SB shirt. You use that link, it takes you to Fanatics, their Nike shirts, and you could celebrate that Super Bowl 59 championship, and these shirts, you can have them forever. They are timeless because that Super Bowl victory is never going to change. It's never going to go away, and we're never going to forget about it. Going back to Travon Walker here, look at the growth that we have seen since he was the first overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. What I would have done if I was Jacksonville, taken Aiden Hutchinson over Travon Walker. And up to this point, Hutchinson has been more productive, even though last year he had that horrific broken leg. But it's not to say that Walker is a bust. It's not to say that Walker isn't any good. He's really good. Probably the second best player in that draft class potentially over the long haul. I would have gone Hutchinson number 1, but Walker, you see the steady improvement, and you see what the Jags saw. Length, athleticism, burst, physicality, ability to stop the run, get after the quarterback. Year 1, 3.5 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, 5 TFLs. Then he had double-digit sacks in year 2. That 2023 campaign, 10 sacks, 19 quarterback hits, and 10 TFLs. And so he pretty much doubled all of his numbers. Sacks more than doubled, quarterback hits nearly doubled, and then doubled his TFLs from year 1 to year 2. And then in year 3, he upped his sacks by a half sack, up to 10.5. QB hits went down by 4, but the TFLs did go up to 13. This is a player who I think is going to continue to emerge, and he graded out pretty well athletically in the pre-draft process. That has helped him become a really impactful player for that Jags defense, and he graded out analytically last year according to some of the Pro Football Focus numbers. Overall grade of 68.2, pass rush grade of 65.1, run defense grade of 69.2. His 10.5 sacks, 15th among edge defenders last year. His 35 stops were 10th. He had 40 hurries, 15th. Pressures, 56. That was top 20 at number 19. And he had 555 pass rush snaps, second in the NFL. So he's been a durable and improving player. And double-digit sacks in back-to-back years, I think that his best football is ahead of him, which would fit the type of move that Howie Roseman could make. And look at the improvements that we saw from 2023 to 2024. You see his Pro Football Focus numbers here on your screen. A lot of these numbers didn't come close to what Walker did in 2024, but in year 2 for a raw player, still good. His 10 sacks, 18th at edge. His 27 stops, that was top 40. He had 39 hurries, 23rd, 59 pressures, 22nd, and 18th in pass rush snaps. The pressure numbers, what you like to see there, because that shows you he's had a consistent ability to get after the quarterback. And the Eagles have so much draft capital in the 2026 NFL draft. It really is incredible what Howie Roseman has been able to do with stockpiling all of these picks for next year's draft. You know what I always say about draft picks, right? It allows you to be a consistent and sustainable winner, especially with the salary cap going up and player salaries going up, because draft picks are cost-controlled, affordable assets who either help your depth or they become starters, and you have them on your team for 4 to 5 years. And look at all of these draft picks that Howie has for the 2026 draft. They have their own first. Eagles have their own second. They have 3 thirds, one from the Jets, their own, and a projected compensatory pick for Milton Williams. They have 2 fourths, their own, and a projected comp pick for Josh Sweat. The 5th round pick can elevate to a 4th. That's by way of the Bryce Huff trade. They have a 5th from Atlanta, a 5th from Houston, their own 5th, a projected comp pick in the 5th round for Mekhi Becton, and their own 7th round pick. Not only is that a lot of picks, all of them except for one inside the first 5 rounds. It's also a lot of top 100 selections. So if Howie Roseman wants to make a trade for a player like Travon Walker, the ammunition is there. The Jags this offseason did exercise his 5th-year option, and so his contract for 2026 is guaranteed. But I don't think that when he looks for his new deal, he's going to be demanding or asking for Myles Garrett type of money. I think that you can get him between 30 and 35 million. Keep in mind, you'd probably have to pay him that, and you'd probably have to pay Jalen Carter that amount of money too. But that's why this offseason, the Philadelphia Eagles let players go, and they opened up a lot of cap space because they're keeping the future in mind with the defensive side of the ball, because a lot of their marquee offensive players are under contract through 2028 and 2029. We also know that the Eagles really value relative athletic scores in the pre-draft process. Walker in the pre-draft, a 9.99, so nearly perfect there. 6'5", 272, vertical leap at 35.5 inches, a broad jump of more than 10 feet, a 4.51 40-yard dash at 272 pounds, and then the 20-yard split, 10-yard split, the shuttle, the 3-cone, all graded out in an elite tier. So I said earlier, his athleticism has led to him being a highly impactful player. You have that foundation, and then you have these growing skills. I think that Walker's going to continue to get better, and we know that Howie Roseman really values players like this. So be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_senior, in addition to all of the long-form content I give you here on Eagles. Now, right here on YouTube, I'm always talking birds on my social media pages as well.